Blog Talk Radio.
And in those days there were giants in the land, and the sons of the angels of God looked upon the daughters of men and found them fair, and took of them wives, and their sons became of old great men of renown. So they have been mixing with us on a genetic level since the time of Enoch and Ezekiel's will.
Here on Earth we're intrigued by the sun, moon, and stars, and imagine there's got to be planets like ours. So conceive of a face on the surface of Mars, so in need of a meaning and purpose we lost. That indeed they believe that these might be our gods, or that maybe with time we'll do right and evolve and eventually reach what they seek and then solve all the problems of man. But they really don't know that they fall in the works of our hands are but just filthy rags. So we travel the lands to dig up our past. Time elapses and with it are much of the facts. Some imagine that God came in alien craft. They react in this way, they're so desperate for meaning and purpose, but satanic service, they know that they have evil motives. Am I making you nervous? I'm just scratching the surface. The lines from Ezekiel's wheel, when the skies unfold like scrolls and the breaking of seals. Heed the warning, the message is clear. Heed the warning, the time draws near. See the lines from Ezekiel's wheel, when the skies unfold like scrolls and the breaking of seals. Heed the warning, the message is clear. Heed the warning, the time draws near. In the blink of an eye, all believers will be raptured. Anyone left receives a mark or the caption. This leader will arise, claim his origins are alien, possessed by Satan on the side of the Nephilim. Profess those who left held us back from evolving, and now that they're gone, we'll solve all of Earth's problems. The worship of any one God will be halted, evolving to gods and ourselves be exalted. They'll play on these lines, and in time they'll devise and arrive at a plan that will help hypnotize all the ones left behind, the spiritually blind. He's stolen their souls, now he's stealing their minds. It's already started, we're seeing the signs. Just study the word, prophecies all aligned. Now chop off the heads of all those who fight at one earth, one world. Aren't you excited? The lines from Ezekiel's wheel, when the skies unfold like scrolls and the breaking of seals. Heed the warning, the message is clear. Heed the warning, the time draws near. See the lines from Ezekiel's wheel, when the skies unfold like scrolls and the breaking of seals. Heed the warning, the message is clear. Heed the warning, the time draws near. Where will you be in the year 2012? Are they casting a spell they're not ready to tell? It's time to reveal what they tried to keep veiled. Pure evil they hail and they sell it so well. He fell from the heavenly realms where he dwelled, a once beautiful angel that tried to rebel. Expelled from the light into darkness and hell, now a serpent and snake with reptilian scale. He wears a disguise with angelic wings and mimics the truth with a lie so obscene. He always repeats the same thing he told Eve, that you'll be supreme, a king or a queen, that you can evolve to an enlightened being, a god of your own that can do anything. He feeds on our souls with this fraudulent scheme in so many ways, but it's all just the same. See the signs from Ezekiel's wheel, when the skies unfold like scrolls and the breaking of seals. Heed the warning, the message is clear. Heed the warning, the time draws near. See the signs from Ezekiel's wheel, when the skies unfold like scrolls and the breaking of seals. Heed the warning, the message is clear. Heed the warning, the time draws near.
Why hide yourself with, creating UFO crafts and things like that? Why that deception if that's indeed what's going on?
The creatures figured out that there was one way that they could frighten mankind, and that is to present themselves as technologically superior beings, some physical UFOs.
Why would they want to abduct human beings?
UFO abduction might not be caused by physical occupants, but from creatures living in perhaps what we would call another dimension.
Posing as occupants.
Yes, the same type of interfering, harassing, paraphysical creature in every culture worldwide.
For me, the world is weird because it is stupendous, awesome, mysterious, and unfathomable. My interest has been to convince you that you also must assume responsibility for being here in this marvelous world, in this marvelous desert, in this marvelous time. I wanted to convince you that you must learn to make every act count, since you are going to be here for only a short while. In fact, too short for witnessing all the marvels of it. Don Juan, that was he was the Nagual that taught Carlos Castaneda and had him under his tutelage for, it was a period of decades. And that tutelage and that apprenticeship has been documented in a series of books that he wrote basically as his thesis paper. He was an ethnobotanist studying at the college UCLA, I believe, was UCLA, somewhere in the lower California area. And he was an ethnobotanist studying plants and different attributes of plants, medicinal properties. He went out to the desert and met this guy, Don Juan, who was basically like a desert medicine man that had knowledge of the old ways of the traditional natives that were living there, and that had passed down knowledge, because some of the things that in ancient traditions, they're not written, but they are very strict in their oral tradition in the way that it is, told to the upcoming generations, and they're careful who is selected to actually hear the stories and who, secrets are held like that. But anyways, supposedly Don Juan was shown by Spirit to take Carlos Castaneda on as an apprentice, and the whole story goes through a 10-year span. But anyways, Carlos Castaneda wrote about a path for the man of knowledge. And this is actually based on the traditions of the Yaqui, which were interesting to me because my ancestry is actually linked to Sonora, Mexico, and that area through my father's bloodline. And so I read all these books early in my life, but anyways, they teach you basically how to walk the way of a way of the warrior or way of a man of knowledge, and they give you just personal example through life experience what happened to Carlos, and of things that individuals can do to make themselves more accessible to moments of transcendence and experience with Great Spirit. And always, when you pray or when you, and this is basically more like a vision quest where you really are yearning to seek God, willing to fast over time, willing to purify yourself in whatever way through the different ways that the different cultures do it. But anyways, if you really yearn for prayer and you're really sincere and you have right intent and you're sincerely yearning for Spirit, that the Lord will come and reveal Himself to you and lead you and guide you and develop relationship with you over time. But I wanted to just give you read from just the topics from the index, because these are interesting in that they give you insight into behaviors that the world would seem odd, but that are actually very liberating in their ability to free you from being locked into the whole 9 to 5, and not just that, but the regular routine of what has taught to us to be life. The whole working in the system. And so I'm just going to read a couple of these and then comment, and then we're going to go into quoting, and Jazz has brought up some really interesting information that I'm going to talk about, and it has linked to that zombie apocalypse stuff that's been going on, because it's still ongoing. But there's been some other stories that have popped up recently that are bringing up questions, and these are interesting questions, and just so we'll go into that as well. But just really quickly, the index. And this is from a book called The Journey to Ixalan, which is I believe it was the third book of Carlos Castaneda's series. Chapter 2 is about erasing personal history. And what he gives example of in this particular chapter is making yourself mysterious, not making yourself concrete in such a way that people know everything about you, about your life. And that would be so difficult for us of this generation, because everybody feels like you have to put everything about your life, even on the internet and the web, and that puts it out to the entire world. And so it's hard for people not to know things about us when you can just type in a person's name and come up with dozens of web pages for individuals and the work that they've done. It's hard to remain mysterious, but in this particular book, it does give you kind of a way to, that if you do, and the reason Carlos recommends this and Don Juan teaches in this is because once you break habit and routine and you're not stuck in a ritual of life, then everything becomes fresh and new again. And that's the important thing, because when life and the moment, especially the moment, because that's what we're learning to wake up to, is that when you can wake up to the moment and what's happening in the right now, you can grasp your full ability within that moment to do whatever it is, whatever window of opportunity presents itself, whatever chances, dangers, and that you have to avoid. When you're awake and aware, you can watch those things come to you, and you can react to them before they actually crescendo into your life. And you can decide whether to allow those kind of things to come into your life or not. But if you, just walking around like a zombie without any awareness at all, then things are going to happen to you, and you're just going to end up reacting to them. And that's where a lot of people really are. I mean, in this world today, so many are zombified. It's crazy. People joke about those B-rated movies and all the insanity that they portray, but who would ever thought that the possibilities of things like that coming into a real life being? And we're going to talk about that again, like I said. Next one is losing self-importance. This is another one that is really hard for people to do. The reason you lose self-importance is because when you no longer have self-importance, you no longer have need to defend that or to stand up for that, or to, not saying that you make yourself, bow down to everything or you avoid conflict. It's not that at all. It just means that you're not going to be affected by somebody, especially people that try to push your buttons on purpose, that try to affect you and get you to react or behave in such a way. And that goes on a lot in the world. You would be amazed at the cycles that people run in their life, in their relationships with each other. It's insane the kind of habitual routines that we have and we carry. Number 4 is using death as an advisor. And what this chapter is about, and this is another one that is of utmost importance. I mean, this is only, 4 words, but the meaning behind this is so very important, because basically what it talks about is being aware of your mortality, being aware of your impending doom or death, knowing that you're mortal and you have but this lifetime in flesh, and that it's sacred. Your life, every moment, everything you have opportunity and chance to do in your everyday, that is a true blessing. It's our decision what it is we choose to place our focus on, what it is we choose to put our effort into, what it is we choose to dream and put focus on, and what it is we want to create and bring in to the world. But so many just, they use their focus on nothing, absolutely nothing. There are people, and especially for the youth, just because they live in small towns, wherever it may be, they are seemingly bored out of their minds and have nothing to do. I mean, I don't understand boredom, because I just, there's so many things I want to do with my time. I don't have really enough time to even do all those things, and I just do what I can. And especially with my disability, I have to especially make use of the time that I have when I'm sitting up to create, to focus, to write, things like that. And so a lot of people just waste time, and especially now, it doesn't seem like we are living in those kind of days where we can just really waste time, or just waste the moment. All right, and that goes right along with chapter 5. Oh, let me comment also one more time. When you use death as an advisor, and you are aware of your impending death every moment, and that you know you are promised no tomorrows, and that you can die at any time, then your life takes on a whole different kind of flavor, and also a different kind of awareness. It's going to talk about this. It calls this state of mind becoming a hunter. And all that means is that the hunter that has to protect its flock or sheep or people has to learn the routines of the predator, has to utilize its mind and knowledge and tracking abilities to learn the traits, learn the routines of the animal, to learn the weaknesses, the strengths, the deficiencies, and the proper time and where to set the trap to capture prey. And so a hunter has to become 100% completely focused within the moment, because at any time his life is at risk, or her life is at risk. And so becoming a hunter and learning to live with that state of mind makes you sharp for anything that happens to you. And so nothing then will catch you by surprise, because you're a hunter. And so that's what chapter 6 is about. But going back to chapter 5. Chapter 5, and we're only going to spend a little more time on this, because I'm doing a quick show today. I've got lots to do to prepare to get ready. I'm going to visit my son, and he's getting married next weekend, and so I want to wish him congratulations and send love out to Joy and her family, and And Justin, congratulations, son. You are a godsend. I'm so grateful, and every day I give thanks for you. And if anybody, if anybody wants to know about me or who I am, they can just look at my son and see, because he's a reflection of who I am, and he's the example of me. So, anyways, I love you, son. I just want to give you a shout out. Going to chapter 7. We're going to go through these quick. Being inaccessible. This is another thing that is hard, difficult for people to do. Being inaccessible. What this means is that you take some time for yourself in a day, in whatever, some space where you allow yourself to commune with Spirit. This is the prayer closet. Being inaccessible means that you break the routines of life. You set down the beeper. You turn off and don't listen to the TV and the telephones and anything that has to do with the regular routines of life and living. All those things connected to the flesh world and this world. You have to take yourself out of that for a short amount of time, even if it's 10, 15 minutes and every day, whatever, just so that you create a space where you are inaccessible to other people and that you honor yourself by going into that prayer closet and developing relationship with not only yourself but with Spirit, because that's what spending time with self is spending time with Spirit. And learn, do the things that you've always wanted to do, the things you've always were afraid to try, whether it's writing or painting or whatever. Trust that you can be good at anything you put your focus on. Trust that with persistence and over time, you will become masterful in whatever it is that you attempt to do. Because if you have that persistence and you have that patience with yourself and you have that determination to push on and persevere, you'll get better and you'll succeed and that's with whatever it is that you do. All right, chapter 8, disrupting the routines of life. And this is another one that is so hard for people to do. It's to not be on a schedule, not be on a routine. Break your habits. Take a walk during the course of a day. Go through a park. Watch a sunset. Go out and, watch the full moon rise. I mean, something where you're connected to what is the great mystery of creation, to where you slow yourself down enough that you can tie yourself to the natural rhythms, the peacefulness of nature and its unfolding. Because you can use that harmony and that peace to really access deep spaces and places where you can make yourself accessible to Spirit. And actually, that's one of the upcoming chapters. But before that, chapter 9, the last battle on earth. What this means is that when you do these things and you learn to awake your awareness up to the moment, and not only the moment, because Carlos also teaches you how to lucid dream as well. So not only do you stalk the waking moment when you're in flesh body, you also stop the dreaming when you're in your dreaming body, which is a whole nother side of it and a whole nother technique. But when I was younger, I used to lucid dream and used to be able to focus and hold and enter and do things in dreams. And there's a lot of lucid dreamers out there. And in my opinion, lucid dreaming done right is one of the best ways to meet the Spirit and to to come before God and to humble yourself, because the best thing you can do is, for those that are lucid dreamers or that do know how to wake themselves up in dreaming or meditation, is if you go lucid, pray. Pray to the Lord. Give all glory, all thanks. Humble yourself before Him. In that very moment, as soon as you wake up, see what happens. Chapter 12. Oh, no, chapter 10. Becoming accessible to power. Basically, this is, for those that don't know my history, I lived in a van for 4 years. I traveled around and wrote poetry and just sought after the Lord and wanted to know God. And during that time, I did a lot of soul seeking, went to a lot of national parks, and I wrote my first 3 books during that course of my life. And I used to teach snowboarding and martial arts and different things like that also while I was kind of moving around place to place. And anyways, there's a timeline in my first books that covers all the places that I've been. But becoming accessible to power is like just going into your prayer closet. And this can be wherever. It can be just on your knees in your room, in your bedroom, or in a dark place in your prayer closet, in your closet in your house. It doesn't have to be anywhere fancy, but the thing to recognize is that this prayer closet is a way of being, and it's something that we're trying to attain all moments of life. It's a way of praying. Okay, I'm also reading the chat room, so I'm going to get to the other part of it here, Jazz, and then I'm going to get you to put links in the chat room about that as well. And what we're talking about is the recent bath salt stuff and the links to zombified people doing just very strange and weird things. Well, there's been recent articles loosened about weaponized rabies, and there was actually a National Geographic article that talked about these doctors down in Miami, actually, where the one guy got his face eaten off. But anyways, talks to this one doctor that talks about weaponizing rabies and how they could convert it, and how in converting it they could make it airborne. And making it airborne, they could also affect people in that way. And so there was it seems like a release within a recent fox population. And I put some links to some videos on the Fallen Angels TV website. Click on the videos at the very top. They're some of the most recent ones that talk about this. And who knows, whether there's any truth to the possibility that ultra dark forces are involved in trying to perpetuate this and trying to create a problem for populations. Or I don't know. We don't know, but I can tell you that this is only the tip of the iceberg when you consider what William Kennedy and I were talking about in that show that we recently did on the zombies and the bath salts. And because I asked him at the very end of that show, and I want to thank you, Jazz, because you brought it up in that show, about how there sure were a lot of government vehicles around the incident that occurred in Miami. And so I asked William, without knowing at that particular time, whether there was anything like that connected to the incidences that were happening. And he said on my show that he could not comment truthfully one way or the other, but that he too had heard the rumor and was looking into the possibilities of that being a reality. And so whether this is true or not, I don't know, but look it up. You can just type up mutated rabies. Actually, let me see if I can do that right now while we're talking about this. I'm not finished with the other thing, but I'm going to comment on this since Jazz brought it up again. And in that show, William said that he would get back to us. Aha. Here we have the article. And I promise I'm going to go into the armor of God because, this is just to uplift your faith, because I know so many of you are having a hard time out there. And it's not just you. Everybody is feeling the brunt of the evil that is weighing upon the world. And it's heavy. It is ultra heavy, so that the effects are filtering into the lives of all people everywhere, it seems. Even good people, those that are godly, that love the Lord, that have spent their time and focus on serving Him. Everybody's seemingly being persecuted. And so I want to comment in the end of this show and just try to strengthen you a little bit in your walk, and because I know it's tough out there. But just know, that even though it seems so very difficult for you, we're so blessed. Even the fact that you can listen to me and I can send this message out to you and you can get it wherever you are in the world. There's still 80% of the world population that lives on less than $2 a day that have no access to internet, much less food and clean water or necessary nutrients or anything like that. And so we should be very grateful, and we should try to do everything that we can do to help out. All right, the article that I want people to check out, and I'm going to put the link, I just found it. It's called Zombie Virus Possible via Rabies Flu Hybrid. So hybrid, that's a creation, all right? We're talking about creation of something by the guys in the lab. There's the link for the National Geographic story. Zombie virus possible via rabies flu hybrid. It says, in the zombie flicks 28 days later in I Am Legend, an unstoppable viral plague sweeps across humanity, transforming people into mindless monsters with cannibalistic tendencies. Though dead humans can't come back to life, certain viruses can induce such aggressive zombie-like behavior, scientists say in the new National Geographic Channel documentary, The Truth Behind Zombies. Premiering Saturday at 10 p.m. On National Geographic News. For instance, rabies, a viral disease that infects the central nervous system, can drive people to be violently mad, according to Samita Andriansky, a virologist at the University of Miami's Miller School of Medicine in Florida, who also appears in the documentary. Combine rabies with the ability of a flu virus to spread quickly through the air, and you might have the makings of a zombie apocalypse. Are they trying to tell us something here? And why entitle the article, zombie apocalypse, Well, we know that the Illuminati, that the way that they work, and they're laughing at us the whole way, is they make fun of us and they belittle us and they treat us like mindless, uneducated little kids. And so that's what they're doing right here, too. And you can see in the commercials, too, that there's a lot of commercials that are made specifically just to tell you exactly what they're going to do. All right. Unlike movies, zombies, which become reanimated almost immediately after infection, the first signs a human has rabies, such as anxiety, confusion, hallucinations, and paralysis, don't typically appear for 10 days to a year, as the virus incubates inside the body. Once rabies sets in, though, it's fatal within a week if left untreated. If the genetic code of the rabies virus experienced enough charges or mutations, its incubation time could be reduced dramatically, scientists say. Many viruses have naturally high mutation rate and constantly change as a means of evading or bypassing the defenses of their hosts. There are various ways viral mutations can occur, for example, through copying mistakes during gene replication of damage from ultraviolet light. I'm not going to read all of this, but I'm going to read just a little bit more, because this is about the airborne mutation. But for the rabies virus to trigger a zombie pandemic like in the movies, it would also have to be much more contagious. Humans typically catch rabies after being bitten by an infected animal, usually a dog, and the infection usually stops there. Thanks to pet vaccinations, people rarely contract rabies in the United States, and even fewer people die from the disease. This is the example. 2008, only 2 cases of human rabies infection were reported to the Centers for Disease Control. This is the mutation. A faster mode of transmission would be through the air, which is how the influenza virus spreads. Now remember, in the title it says hybrid rabies flu-like mutation. So they're telling you that if rabies were to accidentally get crossed over with the flu virus, that this would be possible. And here they are telling you that they're attempting to create this. All rabies has to do is go airborne, and you have the rage virus. The rage virus, have they already named this? Like in 28 Days Later, Max Myalk, head of the Zombie Research Society, says in the documentary that an international nonprofit is devoted to raising the level of zombie scholarship in the arts and sciences. To be transmitted by air, rabies would have to borrow traits from another virus, such as influenza, or be given those traits by scientists in lab coats and underground mad facilities. Different forms of strains of the same virus can swap pieces of genetic code through a process called reassortment or recombination, said Subab, a virologist at Virginia Tech. But unrelated viruses simply do not hybridize in nature, Subab told National Geographic. Of course, in nature, but we're talking about in deep underground bases where the public does not know anything of the doings that are going on there. Likewise, it's scientifically unheard of for 2 radically different viruses such as rabies and influenza to borrow traits, he said. All right, so scientifically unheard of, doesn't happen in nature, but yet you watch. You watch, because it's already been released. All right. Engineered zombie virus possible. It's theoretically possible, though extremely difficult, to create a hybrid rabies influenza virus using modern genetic engineering techniques. The University of Miami's Andriansky said, Sure, I could imagine a scenario where you mix rabies with a flu virus to get airborne transmission, a measles virus to get personality changes, the encephalitis virus to cook your brain with fever, and thus increase aggression even further. And throw in the Ebola virus to cause you to bleed from your guts. Combine all these things and you'll get something like a zombie virus, she said. Can you believe that? Can you believe that this scientist said these things? I mean, just so casually. Oh, yeah, sure, just mix all these things together, create you a zombie concoction, and yeah, there you go. You've got worldwide zombie apocalypse. Oh, well, thanks for telling everybody that. Let's just get all the mad scientists and the insane terrorists out there working on it. But we know they're already working on it because it's already out there, people. It's already out there. All right. So that, and like I said, there's the links for the video. You can check that out for yourself. Because here's the other thing that I learned. Give a shout out to Water. Hello, sister. Anyways, so the zombie apocalypse on YouTube. You can study these different videos and look into what has been released. And there's not a lot out, but it's intriguing to say the least. Because what has happened is now suddenly there's a airborne rabies epidemic happening among foxes in, I forget exactly where it was at, but it's in one particular part of the country. And these foxes are going nuts. They're attacking people. They're biting children. They're just going nuts. They're rabid. They're mad. They're zombified. And so the experiment is on. It's much like the other things that get released and created. You can study about those things. There's no secrets. It's all out there. There's been so many things manufactured. AIDS, Dr. Leonard Horowitz has come out on that. Harvard professor, PhD. Ebola, so many things. There's things out there that we don't even know, and this is probably one of them. So whether, and I don't know this, whether they're putting this in the bath salts, whether they're putting this in the drugs, I don't know. I don't know. If you're a drug user out there as far as doing these things, you might want to, make a change in your life. Use that as incentive. I'm going to tell you another story, and this is something that's going around here in Georgia that is strange as well, that is, uncertain. And that is flesh-eating bacteria. I've heard of 2 breakouts personally that affected people that I know. And one of them got a tattoo, and the needle went too deep and inserted into the muscle a flesh-eating disease that then incubated in his body, traveled somehow, and then unveiled itself near his belly button and his stomach. And it's been weeks, months, I think, that they've been performing studies and trying to find out where it came from, but it was tracked down to that. There's been other cases here in Georgia. A woman just zip lining, cuts herself on the leg, gets this flesh-eating disease, ends up losing both of her feet, I believe one of her hands. I'm not even sure if it stopped there, but there's weirdness going on out there. Jazz says, I don't think it has anything to do with bath salts. And I agree with you, Jazz. I think that's a cover story, but how are they going to introduce this. How are these people getting affected by it? Just be careful, people. Be very wary. All right, let me check one other thing. Oh, and just so you know, there has been ongoing zombie attacks, and I saw some of the statistics. In 2010, there were like less than 100. This year, there's been 4,000, and that's been reported for just one particular town somewhere. And that even though this stuff has been available in the cities and in the states since 2004, it's now becoming very prevalent in usage and people having it as part of their lives. And whether this is, the results of them going, the thing that gets them to get crazy or not, I don't know what it is. I'll just be careful, people. Be wary. You don't know. You just can't trust anything out there. Even the medicine out there and the medicine that is in the pharmacies, a lot of that is fake now. They're importing a lot of fake drugs made from like China and different import places, and those drugs are seeping their way in because of their abundance, their availability, their cost. And dealers or people that are trying to save money, they don't care. They're just trying to get supply to meet demand. And so there's a lot of fake drugs that have entered the system that are killing people even to this day. Do the studies on it, on the fake drugs entering into mainstream medicine. You'll see that the percentages are alarming, if not horrific, in that the system that we trust for our health care is already corrupted and tainted and poisoned by these fake producers of these fake drugs. And whatever fake company and fake brand that they sell them under. The thing is they're affecting people. They're killing people. So be careful. Be careful. All right, we're going to go into the armor of God. Because this, and everybody knows this is from Ephesians chapter 6, but this particular chapter and the first verses, the 24 verses there, are so very profound and so deeply veiled with thought that you can go back time and again to unlock the secrets that are contained within these verses. And the advice here is beautiful in that it tells you to put on the whole armor of God, which includes many different disciplines and traits, and we're going to cover that in the last few minutes of the show. But we're going to read it first. And we'll just read the whole thing. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 1. Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor thy father and mother, which is the first commandment with promise, that it may be well with thee, and thou mayest live long on the earth. And ye fathers, provoke not your children to wrath, but bring them up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. And ye fathers, provoke not your children to wrath. Oh, sorry, read that. Servants, be obedient to them that are your masters according to the flesh, with fear and trembling and singleness of your heart as unto Christ, not with eye service as men pleasers, but as the servants of Christ, doing the will of God from the heart, with good will, doing service as to the Lord, and not to men, knowing that whatsoever good thing any man doeth, the same shall he receive of the Lord, whether he be bond or free. And ye, masters, do the same things unto them, forbearing, threatening, knowing that your master also is in heaven, neither is there respect of persons with him. Put on the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Wherefore take unto you the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all, to stand. Stand therefore, having your loins girt about with truth, and having on the breastplate of righteousness, and your feet shod with the preparation of the gospel of peace. Above all, taking the shield of faith, wherewith ye shall be able to quench all the fiery darts of the wicked. And take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God, praying always with all prayer and supplication in the Spirit, and watching thereunto with all perseverance and supplication for all saints, and for me, that utterance may be given unto me, that I may open my mouth boldly, to make known the mystery of the gospel, for which I am an ambassador in bonds, that therein I may speak boldly as I ought to speak, but that ye also may know my affairs and how I do. Tychius, a beloved brother and faithful minister in the Lord, shall make known to you all things. Peace be to the brethren, and love with faith from God the Father and the Lord Jesus Christ. Grace be with all them that love our Lord Jesus Christ in sincerity. Amen. So recognize, put on the whole armor of God, girding your loins with truth, having on the breastplate of righteousness, feet shod with the gospel of peace, and taking into your arm the shield of faith and the sword of the Spirit, helmet of salvation. With these things, you are to arm yourself so that you can be a good servant unto the Lord. Because we're not to look for recognition or reward for simply doing, but we're to recognize the goodness of how it feels to do good and to just help one another in pureness, with no need or means for exchange, no need to barter, no need for reward, no need for payment, but just a gesture of goodwill. How that feels to both parties. And to recognize also that the Lord says here that we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, powers, rulers of darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. These are the archons. These are the fallen angels. These are the powers, the eye at the top of the Illuminati pyramid. These are the invisible, the ones that go about in forms of darkness and shapes of serpents, the interdimensional beings that every once in a while you recognize on a higher vibrational level, that you'll catch glimpse or recognize shadow or see trace. This is what the Emerald Tablets was talking about. This is what the Nag Hammadi codices call the archons and the rulers of darkness. And this is also what Enoch calls the Watchers, the fallen Watchers, and the angels that rebelled against the Lord, that held not their first estate. This is what is talked about in Genesis chapter 6. And this is also what is talked about in Genesis chapter 1, in the separation of light and darkness, because that's when Satan was kicked out of the heavens. That's when the visible realm separated from the unseen worlds, the imperishable worlds from the perishable worlds, the seen from the unseen. That's when matter came into being. And so it's been an unfoldment since that time. The Lord has been unfolding himself as the creation in every individual form and possibility. Because basically he's like experiencing himself, recognizing himself in all forms. And we're part of that. We are part of the great mystery that is creation, that will be here forever and have part of existence. And how blessed are we? You know, how blessed are those that have eternal life and that do the will of the Father, and that uphold his commandments and listen to his ordinances and seek out his kingdom and bear his cross. How lucky are those that truly, truly commit themselves to serving him. And it's not for any sake of reward or any sense of expectation. It's just simply how to love for the Father, the Son, the Creator, the creation, ourselves, and our brothers, sisters, family, mothers, fathers, daughters, uncles, sons, everybody. We're like a giant fellowship of creature and creation, one big giant family. And if we could just recognize that and treat each other as such, and recognize the sacredness of each moment and each other, what a different place this would be. But that's the kind of world we're going to. That's the kind of world that the Lord's going to bring into being, that is going to be implemented, and it's on the horizon. We are at Event Horizon. Not long all, y'all. We're already 90 seconds. I just want to thank everybody coming and joining the show. I'm sorry that this one was short. I've got some things I got to do. But I appreciate everybody, and I just pray that the Lord continue to bless you and watch over you and lead you in discernment and protect all of us. In Yahushua Yahweh's name I pray. Amen.
A number of things that I've heard from people in the Pentagon, that the buzzword in the secret of secrets in the Pentagon is the Sumerian gods are returning, and that's what they're referring to as that whole area that Peter's.
Wow!
Can you repeat that again, just in case anybody missed it? The buzzword in
the Pentagon, and the military circles that are in the know about the cover-up here, they kind of in whispered tones talk about the return of the Sumerian gods. And they're talking about what we would call aliens or fallen angels returning into the Middle East, into Old Sumer area.
The Anunnaki.
Well, could be.
Under the other ancient names.
Do you think that has anything to do with why we're in a